Hello friends, my name is Becca and today we are here with thoughts from bed, where I'm actually on my bed for the first time in a while, I think, when making this series. If you're new to the series and haven't seen the other ones, this is basically where I sit on my bed and I tell you what I've been thinking about a lot from my bed, which is very unmade at the moment. So I've been thinking a lot about the idea of grit because I started reading the book Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance, or something like that, by Angela Duckworth. I can put a link to it in the description if you want, or I'll put the title so you can know what it is. So far, it is good, and basically what she looks at is what is kind of like a key component in success. What can you say is a character trait that defines successful people? And so the trait that she gets down to is grit, which is this idea of essentially never giving up. And I was talking to my sister about this, and she asked a question, which is the question that I've been thinking a lot about, which is, what do you do though when you feel like the passion isn't there? And I feel like, at least in America, passion is kind of romanticized and it's not like romantic passion, that's not what I'm talking about. But there's this idea of find your passion, find that thing or a couple things that you're passionate about that will fill you with motivation. You will wake up early, you will stay up late, you will do everything that needs to be done for that passion. You just are so motivated, whatever it is. And passion and motivation, it's like the idea is that once you find your passion, you will always have the motivation for it. And then I just feel like there are lots of things. How do you keep that passion alive? How do you keep, your vision for these things and whatever it is? And the motivation doesn't have to be, yeah, let's get up and do this thing. It doesn't have to be this like exuberant motivation, which I feel like a lot of people imagine motivation to be, but it can be like a harder, drier motivation, if that makes sense. I feel like passion for me is, I know that this thing is good. I know that this thing is important. And I know that there is something in me that can do this or has to do this or wants to do this. I'm not sure exactly how that all breaks down. But one of those things, all of those things together. And motivation is something that's very different. I think motivation can really be impacted by, did you get good sleep last night? How's your mental health? Are you taking care of yourself? Because if you aren't taking care of yourself mentally, then you aren't going to feel a lot of motivation. You're going to have really low motivation to do the things that you even really care about. And those things that you really care about, you might not even do it at all. And I think lots of people would say, if you don't have the motivation, then the passion is gone. But I'm not sure I think that's true. I think the passion can still be there. The suffering, the desire for whatever it is, your dreams or whatever, to come to fruition with no motivation. So I think I've just been thinking about how can you cultivate motivation to serve a passion, for one thing. And then I think the other thing is that I realized that I've been like almost shaming myself for not being more like impassioned about YouTube, like every moment of every day consumed by making videos. Like, that's what I need to do to be successful. That's what my whole life needs to be about. And I've been like, but that's not me. Another part of it's that I've come to this realization that I don't think any job or any relationship or any mastery of a skill or craft or whatever it is, none of those things are going to satisfy or fulfill me. And there might be parts of me that it satisfies to an extent, but it's not going to fulfill me completely. And that's okay, because I can still love doing something even if I'm not being fully satisfied by it, or fully, like making YouTube videos, it doesn't make me feel fully alive. But to not make YouTube videos makes me feel more dead, if that makes sense. But I don't feel ultimately satisfied or fulfilled by it. And I think that there are lots of people that might say, well, if you aren't waking up and if you're waking up and that's not the first thing on your mind, if you aren't willing to stay up all night for it, if you aren't, impassioned about it, if you aren't entirely motivated about it, then it's not really your passion. Then it's not really something you really want to do. But I think that's been the hardest struggle with me in terms of figuring out what it is that I want to do as I've grown up, is like, though it's so feelings based, like the idea of finding your passion is so based on just like, oh, what's this, at least how I interpret it, what's this like feeling, this fire in you. But the fire in me, at least I think this is what my truest passion in life is to discover who I am, to live a good life that's a blessing to myself and to others, to live a life with as few regrets as possible, to take risks, to explore who I am, to explore what gifts I have, to develop skills and dreams, and to see where things go, but to ultimately to really look at life as an adventure, as cheesy as that sounds, and to embrace all that it can mean for me. And so I think that for me, making YouTube videos, like my life, if this were the one thing that could satisfy me, let's say it doesn't work out, like what am I supposed to do? Then my whole world comes falling apart, because all of my identity, the thing that fills me up completely, is gone. And I think that that can be a really hard and dangerous place, and I think that kind of our culture sets people up for that. So what I'm not saying is that you shouldn't take risks, or that you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket, or you shouldn't really go for something, especially if it's something you think that is going to fill you up or, you know, make you feel more alive. Whatever that is, you should definitely go for it and definitely do it. I think for me, where I've just been landing with all of this is that I can't, like, my identity isn't in a career or a person or an ability, because one day I'm not going to have that career anymore. One day I'm not going to have that person anymore. And one day I'm not going to have that ability anymore. And so if I wrap myself up and build my whole life around these things and place these things kind of as the pinnacle of who I am and what I'm all about, then when those things are no longer there, who will I be? Rather, I would prefer if my whole life was spent figuring out who I was, and these other things were all in service to that. Because then when those things fade, or change, or break, or whatever it is, I'll be able to, I mean, obviously those will all be sad days, because those are all losses, but I will still be intact, because who I am is not dependent upon those things. Find a passion that's most important. More important than a job, more important than a person, more important than a skill. Find a passion that will last your life. That's what it comes down to, is I think that there's importance, passion and perseverance and grit are all important. And I think that they're necessary for success and doing things well. But I think that if you hold on to whatever dream or goal too tightly, if you have grit that makes that thing your life, rather than a type of grit that does all that you can and leaves the results for whatever they're going to be. And that's all that matters. You know, whether you succeed or you fail, that's not about who you are. And if it's made about who you are, which I feel like American culture, passions, and identity are so closely linked, then who you are succeeds or fails. And I just think that's kind of a crummy way to live, and a sad way to live, and kind of a downer way to live. And I don't really like that. I want to be content with who I am, content with the fact that things pass and things change. In my heart, not holding things so tightly that when they're gone, I fall to pieces. But when they're gone, I can be sad and then pick myself up and move on. And I think, I mean, feel free to disagree, but I think, you know, I'm happy with where I've kind of landed on that. And what it means for my YouTube channel and my film career and everything else and all that it means. And I think that's the most important thing, that you're able to be content within yourself and at peace within yourself. If you have thoughts about this stuff, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. What are you passionate about? What drives you forward? You know, all the things I talked about a lot of things. If anything caught your fancy, then let me know down below. If you made it all the way to the end, then you should comment blueberries are your passion. Sweet, sweet, juicy blueberries. Those are your passions. And then you'll be a superstar, and I'll give you a superstar. A metaphorical superstar for making it this long. I know they're long, but this literally is how I talk to my friends. I'm treating y'all like I treat my friends. So, thank you all so much for watching, for listening, as friends do, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!